A twig snapped under Skamous' foot, and his eyes darted around quickly, taking in his now rapidly changed environment. One moment he had been in the village square in the center of Rothgar. Now he found himself deep within the heart of the Murmuring Woods. Looking behind him, he saw his two companions. The tall, lanky one's name was Thalis Rohan. Leather crisscrossed his body, and the small hilts of several daggers could be seen poking out of these straps. Skamous' other companion looked very out of place in the woods, a prim and proper elven woman. She stood with a rigid back, wearing rather expensive-looking clothing that demarcated her affluent upbringing. A small rapier was strapped to her hip, and her shoulder-length blonde hair was tied up in a bun. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was the first to speak up. "Well, here we are, I guess. Now let's see the trial scroll," she said, gesturing to the large rolled-up piece of parchment that was handed to Skamous right before they were teleported into the woods. Skamous looked toward her and then slowly unfurled the paper, to reveal nothing. Absolutely nothing. The paper was blank. Elizabeth's calm and haughty demeanor dropped immediately upon seeing the blank paper. What kind of joke is this? They send us out into dangerous woods with a blank sheet of paper? And what are we supposed to do exactly? Thalis stepped up next to the now pale-faced Elizabeth, and after a long moment of looking at the parchment, he placed his hand onto the sheet alongside Skamous and Elizabeth, who were holding it unfurled, scanning it for some kind of clues. As soon as his hand made contact, a spark went through all three of them, and script rapidly appeared onto the page. Deep within the woods that speaks, the plants they move, the trees they think. Find them before they find you. Take one back to prove you're true. Do it by force or do it with kind. Bring back to Rothgar, part of a plant with a mind. As the words scrawled across the page, a grin spread across Thalis' face. Looks like we're gonna have to work together if we want to beat these challenges. At least this riddle seems pretty cut and dry, though. Find a sentient plant, bring it back to Rothgar. Elizabeth's face screwed up into a scowl. Cut and dry? First we have to try and find a plant creature. Then we have to convince it to come back with us? To where exactly? We don't even know where we are, or how to get back. And you're not the least bit worried? Not at all, Drama Queen. Some of us trained for this. I, for one, didn't have a maiden waiting on me hand and foot. That is, until you came along. The warrens of Rothgar have many more teeth than any beast in this jungle. So no, I'm not worried. But we should get moving. Your wailing might have attracted unfriendly eyes. Elizabeth's face was red hot, and it seemed as though she was about to launch into another tirade. But with a look into the shadows that surrounded her, it seemed as though she thought better of it, choosing instead to stomp her foot on the ground and start walking. Without much of a bearing to their surroundings, the three picked a direction and started off. Elizabeth took the head of the group, constantly remarking on the names of different plants, and complaining about how filthy she was getting. As the hours passed, the three trudged through the woods, flinching at any sound louder than the ever-present birdsong and the murmuring of the wind through the trees. It was this alertness that saved Elizabeth's life. Skamous stopped in his tracks as they were halfway through a clearing of trees, his eyes quickly darting around. Something's wrong. I don't hear the birds anymore. Thalis, quick as an eye, pulled 2 daggers from his chest straps, and in a lightning-fast motion kicked out, slamming his foot into the back of Elizabeth's kneecap, sending her sprawling to the ground, and not a second too soon. For as she toppled to the ground, a large black blur lunged over top her, directly at the place she had previously stood. Skamous immediately stepped over Elizabeth's prone form, bringing his staff up at an angle so that he was ready to defend. The black-muscled beast took a testing step forward with one of its large 6 legs, and at the same time its foot moved, its back split open, revealing 3 large black tentacles that lashed out towards Skamous' face. ducking under one and windmilling his staff to slap away the other two. Skamous whipped the end of his staff out to find only air where the creature had been standing not a second prior. The creature now stood nearly a foot away from where his staff had whiffed. It let out a chuff, almost as if it was laughing at him. It wasn't laughing for long, though, for while it had been distracted pursuing Skamous and Elizabeth, Thalos had moved out of its sight, and now was slinging daggers at it. While two thudded into the ground, one of them made purchase and slid deep into the beast's flank, eliciting a yowl of pain. "It's using some kind of illusion. It's not what your eyes tell you it is. Swing wide and you might hit it." The creature whipped around, focusing in on Thalos, giving Skamous only enough time to pull Elizabeth to her feet, before one of its black tentacles once again tried to club Skamous' head. This time, it was Elizabeth who saved him. Drawing her rapier and lopping off the bulk of the tentacle in one swift motion, black ichor spurted from the remains of the lacerated tentacle, causing the creature to screech out in agony. Then, looking back and forth between its once intended prey, it leaped off into the woods, giving one last yowl as it loped away. Thalos, breathing heavily, grabbed Skamous and Elizabeth and started sprinting in the opposite direction. "We need to move. The sound of the fight will have carried, and got the attention of something far worse." They ran hard for an hour, and while branches could be heard breaking the distance, nothing else crossed their path. Eventually, during mid-afternoon, they were forced to stop moving, winded and dirty from tripping over roots. They slumped to the ground amidst a canopy of trees. Pulling supplies from his pack, Skamous handed extra food and water out to everyone. Thalos gratefully accepted, while Elizabeth declined, stating that her pack contained much higher quality food. The three of them ate in silence for some time, before Elizabeth spoke up in a relatively quiet tone. "Well, I hate to admit it, but I think you both saved my life. Not that I didn't hold my own in the fight," she said as she used some water to clean off her saber. "Anyway, I just thought it would only be polite for me to say thank you, even if you were a little rough about it," Elizabeth said, looking pointedly at Thalos during the last part. Skamous smiled. "You helped just as much. I'd be missing my head if it weren't for you. And Thalos, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't have known how to even hit the thing." Thalos smiled a cocky grin. Yes, we work quite well together. Now the real question is, how to find what we're looking for. Been at it for hours and haven't even found anything, have we?" "Well," Elizabeth said, a bit sheepishly, "I could try my magic." "You know magic," Thalos said indignantly. "Then why have we been wandering the forest for hours?" "Well," Elizabeth said again, "I'm still kind of new at it, and sometimes it goes really, really, really bad." "Like how bad?" Skamous asked. "Well," she said for the third time, "there was this one time I was trying to mend a small crack in my hand mirror, and instead it shattered, and the pieces flew at one of my handmaidens. It took forever to convince her I didn't do it on purpose, and even then she wouldn't work in my room again." By the time Elizabeth had finished talking, her face had slowly morphed from the pompous mask they had become accustomed to one of slight, glowing embarrassment. "Well," said Thalos in a mimicking tone, "why don't we give it a go? Can't be worse than running into another beast that wants to make a snack out of us." "I guess it couldn't hurt to give it a try," Elizabeth said with a look on her face that suggested otherwise. Sitting down, she pulled out a large leather-bound book, as well as a small ivory figurine. "Here we go." Waving one hand in an arcane pattern, slowly, the figurine became less statuesque and more lively. Shaking its head, the ears flopped down and fur grew into place. The small statue was no longer that, but was instead a 6-inch, living, breathing, and yapping Labrador. The smile that spread across Elizabeth's face was so big that it threatened to tear her cheeks. "I can't believe I actually did it! This little guy will tell us which direction to go." Saying this, she raised up the miniaturized dog, which promptly shook its head disapprovingly in the way they had been previously going, the motion causing its small ears to flap around cutely. She slowly turned, repeating the process, until when she was facing south, the dog let out a small, pleased bark. "He says there's something this way," she said, still smiling. "Although, I have to warn you, I have no idea what kind of plant creature it will lead us to." "Better than wandering blind," Thalia said, stepping to follow Elizabeth. The three of them continued this way for some time, using the dog's head wags and barks of elation to guide their way. It wasn't until the dog let out a long, echoing howl and poofed back in an ivory form that the trio really examined their environment more closely. While initially it seemed as though they had stepped into a large clearing, upon further inspection they saw what looked to be hundreds of enormous tree trunks littering the forest floor. In the center of the large clearing, amidst the bottoms of the decapitated forest, loomed an absolutely gargantuan tree. Wordlessly, weapons at the ready, they approached, waiting for some creature to spring forth in an attempt to maul them. What they didn't expect was the wood of the larger-than-life tree to contort into the visage of a face so full of anger and fury that it stopped the group cold. "Give it back!" The tree bellowed as a branch thicker than Skamous' body narrowly missed, crushing him to pulp. "It's not yours!" Another limb slammed in the ground in front of Thalia, causing him to fall back in the wake of the strike. "I don't want to hurt you!" Another slam. "But I will, if I must." This slam, Skamous had to roll out of the way to avoid being crushed. When he came up from the ground, though, he spread his arms wide, dropping his staff. "We are not here to hurt you. We only wish to talk." "Liar!" the treant screamed, bringing a heavy branch down towards Skamous, stopping mere inches from his prostrated form. "I can. I won't kill you. Unlike your kind, I have respect for the sanctity of life. Even in my anger, I will not sink as low as your kind have. If you will not return what you have taken, then take an axe and chop me down. Make it quick." We don't know what you're talking about," Elizabeth said after some time. "Of course you don't. Your kind are as destructive as you are ignorant. You come to our forests, and you cut and burn and kill and take. Just look around you at the corpses of my brethren," it said, gesturing to the multitude of tree trunks. "More of us are taken each time these trials are held. Now, one of your groups has taken the last of the Mandrake Grove, and that race will go extinct. But do you care? No. You come to me without a worry, claiming you just want to talk. With creatures filled with so much blood, I find it astounding how heartless you are." We won't kill you," said Elizabeth with a bit of water in her eyes. "And furthermore, we'll be getting that mandrake back for you." "We what?" said Thalia. "No, she is right," said Skamous. "We can't just watch as someone destroys an entire sentient race of creatures. Just point us in the direction of the group, and we'll try our best to bring it back." A large rustling of branches that sounded strangely like a sigh emitted from the tree. "I don't know if I trust you. But at this point, I have nothing to lose.
through this way not more than 20 minutes ago and headed off toward the north."
The three looked at each other and then took off running to try and catch up with whoever was responsible for taking the last mandrake. Each of them had weapons in hand, ready to fight if that was what it was to come to when they launched themselves into the center of camp. There, huddled around a cooking fire, was none other than Jess, Sigwart, and Elizabeth's brother. Sigwart immediately jumped to his feet, pulling out a wicked-looking scimitar. As he stepped forward towards Skamous, rage plastered across his features.
"Come to kill us too, you bloody bastard!"
Skamous shrunk back, putting the staff on his back, thinking how the scene appeared.
"No, we came to talk to you, actually, about the mandrake you caught," Sigwart snorted. "Well, you can't have it. It's ours. We found it, fair and square."
Skamous shook his head.
"No, that's not what I meant. The mandrake is the last of its kind, and if you take it to the city, you'll be causing the extinction of an entire race."
Jess looked appalled at this.
"Are you sure? Sigwart, if this is true, we can't take it back. I couldn't have that kind of blood on my hands." "Don't listen to this heartless bastard. He's probably just trying to trick us to abandon the thing, so he and his lackeys can take it back so they don't fail the trials. Besides, even if it were true, if we gave up the creature, we would fail, and I don't want to be relegated to shoveling shit for my life just to save some talking lettuce."
Elizabeth looked to her brother for some kind of help.
"Please, brother, talk some sense into your new friend. I know a bad job is, well, bad, but this is genocide you're talking about." "Look, sis, normally I'm the first to be on your side, but for this, I just don't think I care enough. It won't affect us, so why should we care? Once we get jobs in the palace, we will never have to come beyond these walls again, and a few less leafy creatures won't keep me up at night."
Skamous tossed a pleading look toward Jess, who looked torn by the whole situation.
I don't know. If they're right, how could we be so callous? But Skamous, I just don't know if I trust you anymore. Not after you killed Ro. Sigwart told me everything. How you killed him in his sleep. You're not the person I thought you were."
Skamous took a step back, feeling as though he'd been punched by the blatant lie that had apparently been told to one of his dearest friends.
"No, Jess, that's not true." "Oh, you didn't kill him," Sigwart interjected. "No, I did, but..." "See, he did kill him. He admits it. He's a liar and a murderer. Now he's trying to trick you so you end up working in some brothel in the Warrens." Jess's jaw firmed. "You are a liar. I should have known you were no good from day one, Skamous. I can't believe I ever trusted you." Saying that, she withdrew a long, wicked-looking dagger. "If you want the mandrake, Skamous, you're gonna have to take it." Elizabeth's brother pulled a crossbow from his back and made it ready. "Don't make me do this, sis," he said. "Look," Skamous said, showing his hands. "You don't have to take us at our word. We can show you there's a talking tree. It is the one who told us how to find you. Just follow us. We can lead you to it." Jess stepped forward, dagger pointed out. "We aren't going nowhere with you. And if you don't leave now, we'll make you leave." Skamous gasped. "Please, Jess, don't make us do this." His mind raced. He didn't want to fight his friends, but how could he allow them to just kill this innocent thing, especially knowing it was the last of its species? His heart hammered. Looking to his companions, he could tell they were looking at him to decide. "But, my dear players, it's not his decision to make. It's yours." So much riding on this decision, a lifelong crush on Jess, the friendship of Sigwart that has seemed to already sour to hatred, and even a family tree. The other end of the spectrum sits the heavy weight of the continued existence of an entire species, and the future of all our characters. Not an easy choice to make, not at all. Climb onto our YouTube page and vote down in the comments. Maybe you have another way this conflict could be resolved. Suggest it. If it gets the most likes by the time we write the next part of our story, we'll go with your idea.
So will he fight his friends to save the mandrake? Will he let them take the mandrake and return to the tree empty-handed? Or will he do something else? It's your choice to make, and it's your narrative to control. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video so you can keep up to date when we release the next part of the story. But until then, let's write a story. Let's play a game without the dice.